hey, come check out our great singing group from Washington, D.C. with our super producers, Ashford and Simpson, and their gay lead singer. We guarantee you'll love it. Risky for a label as, conservatively buttoned up as Motown. But again, Tony Washington, by being, one of the first ones to be out like that, really gave courage to a lot of other artists and people to be themselves. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to day number 16. We're in the second half of the month now of the Black Music Month 30 series here on the Groove Line with your boy Chris Stevens. Hopefully you all are doing well out there. We are continuing Pride Week this week, and we are staying in the 70s with a most unusual band, well, group, whatever you want to call them. And the lead singer was the one who sort of opened the door for people like Sylvester and, everybody who in the Black music space who is openly LGBTQ today. We're going to talk about the Dynamic Superiors from Washington, D.C., and the late Tony Washington, who is to your far, if you hold up your right hand, he's on your far left. You hold up your left hand, he's still on your left. You get it. He's the gentleman, with his hand up by his chin, up on his collar. And the Dynamic Superiors, they were a group that started in DC in the 60s. If you've never read David Ritz's Divided Soul, you find out how competitive the music scene in the late 50s and early 60s in DC was. And the Dynamic Superiors were a part of that. Tony Washington, his brother Maurice, and a few other guys. And they were discovered by Ewart Abner, who was one of Berry Gordy's right-hand men in Motown Records. And they were signed to the label in the mid-70s. And their first album was produced entirely by Nicholas Ashford and Valerie Simpson. And they had a song called Shoe Shine. Shoe Shine used to cost a dime. A nickel could buy you plenty. What was it? No, it was Shoe Shine used to cost a dime. A penny could buy you plenty. A nickel for a fare could take you anywhere. Troubles, we didn't have many. I don't know how I forgot those lyrics, because I remember Tony Brown used to play that on Old School Thursdays on WDAS quite a bit. I had to remind myself of those lyrics. But yeah, it's one of those songs that talks about how things were back in the day. Back in the day. Because this song came out in 1975. So I imagine a nickel for a bus or a trolley ride. Because remember, we used to have these things called, people back in the day used to have these things called trolleys. They were like miniature trains that used to run through the city. I wish we could have those again instead of freaking buses and airplanes and all of that. I digress. But yeah, a nickel for the fare. And we're not saying fare as in FAIR, but FARE, like how much it would cost you to get on the bus or the trolley, as it were. And a nickel for the fare could take you anywhere. Troubles, we didn't have many. And it was just one of those songs reminiscent on how things were when you were growing up as a kid. I'm guessing all of these guys are about boomer age or a little younger, like World War II babies. So yeah, they're like that in between that silent generation, boomer age, and in the 50s where you grew up and you could, things just seemed simpler then, even though you still had to deal with race issues and different things. But Tony Washington was a groundbreaker in the fact that he was openly gay. And Motown pushed that. Remember, this is the Motown that Berry Gordy ran and had his people going to charm school. To learn how to dress proper, talk to people and shake hands and all of that stuff. I can't imagine, Berry Gordy looking at Tony Washington and saying, I want him on my label. But apparently that's what happened in the 1970s, in the 70s. And Motown actively let people know that Tony Washington, yes, he was a gay man. He would do things like perform in drag. He would sing to men. And apparently, I'm still looking for a version of this somewhere, but he turned Billy Paul's song, yes, that's the one, Me and Mrs. Jones, to Me and Mr. Jones during their live performances. God, I wish somebody had a live performance of that somewhere. It's got to be one in existence. I mean, I just want to listen to it and, just listen to what that would sound like. But yeah, when you look at Black culture, when you look at culture period in the 70s, I think you started to get a feeling that gay people existed and that they weren't content to being shoved in the closet, as it were, as you had to be prior to the Stonewall riot in 1969, because that's where the gay liberation movement started. Let's be clear about that. Marsha Johnson and them folks took the NYCPD to the woodshed, Jack, which is why you should never buy into the fact that gay people are soft. Don't do it, because you're only setting yourself up for an ass whooping. The NYPD said, we'll go in there and take care of these blankety blanks. And they said, all right, we got something for you. Come on in here. Come on in this Stonewall. And that's how, the gay liberation movement started. And, by the time you get to the 70s, everybody starts to want to be free. Because remember, the end of the 60s was hell. You had Vietnam still raging. You had Martin Luther King being assassinated. You had Malcolm X assassinated. You had Robert F. Kennedy Sr. assassinated. If Robert F. Kennedy never takes that bullet, maybe Robert F. Kennedy Jr. acts like he has some common sense. Whatever. But yeah, you had all sorts of, civil unrest in the wake of Dr. King's assassination. You had all sorts of different things going on. And then you get to the 70s and people just stopped giving a damn. They said, all right, man, we survived the 60s. We survived all that turmoil. We want to get high. We want to, whoever we want to, and all of that. And that's how you started to get all sorts of sexual revolutions and different things. Women started taking birth control. Women stopped getting married. Women started having abortions, which I still believe they should have that access to, by the way. Very pro-choice over here. And, the 70s just felt like a time where people wanted to explore and be free. And when you have a guy like Tony Washington who wore makeup on stage, who dressed and looked very effeminate, but still could hold a note that, his falsetto, man, on Shoe Shoe Shine is elite. Like, if you never heard that song, please go listen to it. And just, you don't get those type of trendsetters anymore. Well, I think Tony Washington, yeah, and by the way, he passed away in 1989, allegedly for complications of HIV and AIDS. That's never been confirmed, so I'm not gonna ride with that, and you shouldn't either. But just thinking about how this guy from DC, and he said he knew he was gay when he was a kid, and he had open acceptance. And his brother Maurice said, even during one of his interviews, that Tony is a game changer because there are gay men who come up to him after shows and shake his hand and say thank you for being you. And this was in the 70s. So I don't know why people get up in a tizzy now when there are gay people out in the world, when there are bisexual people out in the world, when there are lesbians, when there are transgender people, I always think about this. I try not to use the Q word because a friend of mine who is one of the best music minds I know, he says that he can't get with being labeled the Q word because Q used to be a slur. And I'm not going to dissuade his opinion on that because, hello, he would know better than I would. But I try to avoid saying queer. But apparently queer is the way people like to identify themselves these days if they aren't, cisgender heterosexuals. And if that's how you want to identify yourself, cool. But you don't get that type of acceptance. You don't get Sylvester. Sylvester was already going to be himself, I think. But I think Tony Washington beat him to the punch by a little bit. But I think they were probably, two peas in the same pot, pretty much. But you're able to get Frank Ocean. You're able to get Tyler, the Creator. You're able to get Sam Smith. You're able to get Janelle Monáe. You're able to get Kehlani. You're able to get these kids who are, when they're not kids, they're adults. But you get these adults now who are and artists who are not afraid to be themselves and be open about who they love, who they choose to love, who they prefer, and not hide from it. So Tony Washington, God rest his soul, man, changed the game for a lot of people. And I'm still trying to get into the Dynamic Superiors catalog as a whole. I just know Shoe Shoe Shine. But when I found out that Motown really went ahead and said, all right, we know this brother gay, so we just gonna go ahead and say, hey, come check out our great singing group from Washington, D.C. with our super producers, Ashford and Simpson, and their gay lead singer. We guarantee you'll love it. Risky for a label as, conservatively buttoned up as Motown. But again, Tony Washington, by being, one of the first ones to be out like that really gave courage to a lot of other artists and people to be themselves. And wherever his spirit is, I hope he rests well, knowing in fact that he made the world a lot safer for Black LGBTQ musicians and artists. And that is something that is indisputable. But yes, we're still going to we'll probably do a Dynamic Superiors deep dive at some point, particular point in time. But I just want to talk about Tony Washington today because, well, he was that's how they got their start. I mean, hey, our lead singer is gay, but we be killing it. And you're going to love our music. And that's all that really matters in the end. I mean, if you're talented, it shouldn't matter who you lay down with or who you love or whatever. It's just a matter, is your music good? That's why, you can't offend fans of Luther Vandross because Luther Vandross' catalog, undeniable. You can't offend Elton John fans because Elton John's catalog, undeniable. You can't, David, we never really got the real scoop on David Bowie. Bowie claimed alternately he was bisexual in different times, we'll never know for sure, but Bowie was a game changer. Luther was a game changer. They worked together on Young Americans, for crying out loud. But yeah, Tony Washington and Dynamic Superiors, a LGBTQ Black music trendsetter, and just, go read up on his story. It's easily available on Google. I'll even put a link to a story that I found while I researched this episode. I guarantee you will come away amazed and honored. It depends on how you feel, but I think you'll come away amazed, that a dude like this could exist in the 70s and not only survive, but thrive. But yes, that's going to do it for day number 16 of the Black Music Month 30 series here on the Groove Line. Greatly appreciate you wonderful people for tuning in. Contact information will be in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe, tap that notification bell so you're notified of all new videos that drop on this channel. Don't forget to like and comment on the videos because, as you know by now, your boy talks back in the comments. So thank you guys for riding with me on the Groove Line, and until the next time we ride, which of course will be tomorrow, may you find the groove, or may the groove find you.